Hi everybody, it's Peter Schiff. I'm recording this on Thursday evening, June 7th, 2012. Well, earlier today, I was back up on Capitol Hill for an encore from my first congressional testimony. Now, to be honest with you, after my first testimony, I really didn't think they'd invite me back for a second try. In fact, if you haven't seen my first testimony, there is a link to it on this video, so give it a look and you'll know what I mean. But they invited me back again, and once again, I didn't pull any punches, so I'm not really sure how the odds makers would handicap my chances of making it a hat trick. But you never know. Just watch the following clips on your own and decide for yourself whether or not Peter Schiff is going to make it back to Capitol Hill for a third time. But before you do, let me set it up a little bit for you. I'm testifying before a congressional subcommittee on whether or not the government should extend loan guarantees to securitizations for multifamily homes. In other words, do the same thing for the multifamily market what Fannie and Freddie did for the single-family market. Just repeat the mistakes that helped create the housing crisis. Clearly, the exact wrong thing to do. But the interesting thing about the testimony, and this shows you how Washington works, there were 8 witnesses that testified. 6 of the 8 were basically lobbyists. They were all there representing the very special interests that specifically benefit from these guarantees because it helps them make a lot more money than they would make absent these guarantees. What is really frustrating is that the congressmen treat these guys as if they're impartial economists, actually recommending things for the good of the country. They don't care about the country. They're recommending what's good for their own special interests. In fact, at one point, Congressman Green, who's a Democrat from Texas, asked for a show of hands of how many people believe the country needs the FHA. And 6 hands went up. Of course, mine didn't. But the 6 people who raised their hands, those were the people who need the FHA for their own reasons, for their own special interests. The country didn't need it. They needed it. And the congressmen don't seem to know the difference. I was the only guy there, really, advocating on behalf of the American taxpayer, who normally doesn't have a seat at that table. Because there's no special interest. There's no reason for me to be there other than to provide the counterbalance. They were all there saying that all these special benefits had no cost to the taxpayer. I was there to remind them of the great cost, not just to the taxpayer, but to the economy. You know, also, Congressman Green, you'll see at one point he goes off on his own revisionist view of American history, in which he proclaims that before the government had an FHA, the lower income people, even maybe some middle income people, couldn't even get houses. That there was no market. And basically maybe everybody was living in shanty towns or tents. I don't know what he was saying, but somehow he credits the government for saving everybody and supplying housing as if the free market couldn't do it. But, you know, even the Republicans had a hard time understanding my message. There was one Congressman, Hurt, a Republican from Virginia, who was somewhat sympathetic with what I had to say. But he asked me, he said, Peter, you know, we hear you talking, but you don't have any solutions. When are we going to hear solutions from you? And I think the reason he didn't hear solutions is because he didn't know what to listen for. See, he was listening for a new government program. I was trying to tell him that capitalism was the solution, that getting rid of government programs was going to save us, not creating new ones. They still have a hard time seeing the government as the problem, and my desire to simply remove these government programs as being the solution. But anyway, it was a 2-hour hearing. Unfortunately, you know, I didn't get to speak as often as I would have liked to, but I did manage to get a few words in edgewise. I had to try to be somewhat more respectful than I might have liked because I had to make sure they didn't throw me out. So there were a lot of times that I really wanted to speak, and maybe you can see me squirming, but I had to control that impulse. But anyway, watch for yourself. And don't forget, share this with your friends. I think it's important that we circulate this material so people can see what's going on in Washington, D.C., and how their interests are totally being misrepresented, and how legislation is being made by the special interests for the special interests. Enjoy.
We will start with opening statements.
When this administration took office, the economy was on the brink. In the face of this turmoil, this administration took dramatic steps to prevent a complete financial meltdown.
Owners must be assured of reliable, predictable funding from the government. Fully 40% of the FHA insured of the Section 8 portfolio is FHA insured, constituting over almost $14 billion in FHA loans.
Increasing the supply of rental housing that is affordable to extremely low-income households is part of the solution, but there is no evidence that the private market is willing to invest in this housing on its own, despite the huge demand.
This proposal would allow states to better address this need within their communities at no cost to the federal government.
I'm here this morning representing the Mortgage Bankers Association.
As the future of the nation's housing finance system remains in flux, the future of FHA multifamily mortgage insurance programs must be a part of the discussion. NHB believes that the needs of the moderate and middle-income renters must not be neglected. FHA.
My name is Peter Schiff, and I'm the CEO of Euro-Pacific Capital, although I'm better known as having been one of the few voices who very publicly and accurately forecast the financial crisis of 2008, the housing bubble that preceded it, and the Great Recession that followed. Among my many forecasts were that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, two government-sponsored enterprises at the heart of the housing bubble, would in fact go bankrupt. And I also forecast that Congress would make the mistake of bailing them out. Now, I bring this up now in the hopes that what I have to say, these warnings will not fall on deaf ears, although judging by how few congressmen have shown up, unfortunately not too many are listening. In fact, this very hearing proves that Congress still doesn't understand the problem or its culpability in creating it. Now, I'm not saying that Congress acted alone in inflating the housing bubble. It had a lot of help from the Federal Reserve. They supplied most of the air, and that's probably the subject of another hearing. But we cannot underestimate the role that this body played in enabling millions of Americans to buy houses they could not afford based on government-guaranteed mortgages. These are loans that never would have been made but for those guarantees. And ironically, it's not even the home buyers that benefited from the subsidies. It was the housing industry. It was the sellers, home builders. They got to sell the overpriced homes. Realtors got commissions on it. Bankers got fees on it. And it's no coincidence that the same lobbyists that benefit at the taxpayers and the economy's expense are back again looking for more. Right? Well, I'm here. I don't represent any industry. See, I represent the American taxpayer who's on the hook for all this. I don't want to pay for this. Contrary to what's been said, these loan guarantees do not come without costs. Look at how much the defaults cost the taxpayers already on Fannie and Freddie, and we haven't even seen the final price tag. Look, if Congress, if you guys want to guarantee mortgages, do it with your money. Don't do it with mine. But the actual price is just the tip of the iceberg on the cost. When Congress diverts our resources to the housing market, it diverts them away from other sectors of the economy, sectors where the free market would have otherwise put those resources. And so the economy suffers. Americans have to live and work in an economy that is far less productive as a result of congressional meddling. You know, rather than figuring out ways to expand government's involvement and compound the damage, let's actually undo it. How about talking about ways of getting the government out of the housing market, out of the mortgage finance market? You know, we're broke. Maybe you haven't noticed this as you're spending taxpayer money. How about just shutting down the Department of Housing? It's a waste of money. Why don't we get rid of the FHA? Get rid of Fannie and Freddie. They've done enough damage already. We can't afford to perpetuate these problems. We need to get the government out so that we can bring the free market in. You know, unfortunately, the financial crisis, the economic collapse, it's only just started, right? We've seen the overture. The opera is about to play out. Rather than sitting around and trying to figure out how we can pour more gasoline on this fire, I'm here to talk to you about ways of putting it out. And if we really want to talk economics and not politics and not try to find ways to make all these lobbyists happy, right, and try to get reelected, let's actually do something for the American public, for the taxpayers of this country that pay all your salaries. And I'm happy to sit here as long as you want and answer all the questions you have on exactly what we need to do to turn this economy around, to turn the housing market around. And you might not like what I have to say, but what I have to say is correct, and it's going to work. And I thank you for inviting me here to speak to you.
We are now going to go to recognizing each of our members for 5 minutes. Does FHA multifamily publish or publicly release historical delinquency rates and claim rates?
Thank you for that question, Chairman Biggert. Let me assure you that we are committed to transparency in publishing our data. There are any other ways that we can provide data or information to you that you might need about our programs.
So the answer is no, you don't publish those.
We do publish some information on our website.
But not the delinquency rates and the claim rates?
No, ma'am, we have not published those.
Could you provide those to us?
Yes, we could provide those.
Would you please? Because it seems like it kind of suggests a lack of transparency and ability for the public and the Congress to assess whether the multifamily programs are being operated in a safe and prudent manner. I don't know whether to go to Mr. Schiff or not, but I guess I will. You believe that FHA should leave the multifamily mortgage market altogether?
Well, it should leave the single-family market as well.
Well, we're focusing on the multifamily.
Yeah. Well, you have to learn from your mistakes so that you don't repeat them. But I think it's ironic. You know, one of the reasons why maybe the multifamily market might be devoid of credit is because too much of it has been diverted by government to single-family. In fact, you know, I mentioned in my statement that the subsidies didn't help the home buyers. They helped the home sellers, because what happened was, once Americans could get cheap money based on federal loan guarantees, they simply used that cheap money to bid up home prices. And so they just paid more for houses that, absent those subsidies, they might have bought for a lot less money, and we wouldn't have had that bubble. You know, the government needs to recognize that the market knows more than Congress. Let the free market allocate.
All right. Well, let me ask you this: do you believe that the private funders would come into the market without FHA support?
Absolutely. You know, but it's also, if you get the government out of housing completely, so not just the FHA, but Fannie and Freddie, and let interest rates rise to an appropriate level, let people buy houses they can actually afford based on their own creditworthiness. Don't put taxpayers on the hook. Don't try to get people to buy houses when they would be better off renting. I mean, look at all the renters that Congress pushed into homes they couldn't afford, and now we're trying to find ways to swing the pendulum the other way.
Do private funders engage in affordable housing?
Sure they do. I mean, if there's a market for affordable housing, I mentioned in my statement.
Well, give me an example.
Well, you got to get the government out to have a free market, but look at how capitalists are always looking to sell things to lower income people. You can make a lot of money. There's a lot more low income people than rich people, and you can make a lot of volume. One of the richest men in the country was Sam Walton. He made money selling things to low income people. If there's a demand for low income housing, and if Congress stays out of the way, profit-seeking private entrepreneurs will satisfy that demand. The problem is you've got all these private businesses looking to government, right, because they don't want to deal in a competitive marketplace.
My time has expired. The gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Cleaver, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to resist my temptation.
Oh, don't do that on my account.
I wasn't. I was talking to you.
Forgive my presumptuousness.
Would the securitization of FHA and HFA risk sharing loans actually cost taxpayers?
Thank you, Representative, for the question. Actually, no, it would come at no cost. And this is a program that's existed for 20 years, so it has a proven track record of working. In addition to having no cost to the federal government, it would reduce the workload to FHA, which has had some backlogs in applications in terms of processing, and also states would actually share in the risk of the insurance that's provided for FHA. Currently, all FHA loan products can be wrapped with this Ginnie Mae wrap and take advantage of that lower interest rate, and this program is excluded from that possibility. So I just think it would be a very prudent way that the Congress could help states like mine that participate in that program to provide more affordable rental housing at a time when the country truly needs it.
Yeah.
Without putting the taxpayers at risk.
Correct.
Well, that's not.
I yield back the balance of my time.
Can I,
Madam Speaker?
There's tremendous cost here. Can I address this? There's tremendous cost to the taxpayer. That's why everybody's here. It's not because there's no benefit.
Time has expired.
Can I address that?
The gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Herder.
Thank you,
Vice Chair,
Madam
recognized
Chair.
for 5 minutes.
My first question is for Ms. Head. I wanted to talk a little bit about the increase, the proposal to increase mortgage insurance premiums. There have been some criticism that really that the purpose of this is to just cover FHA shortfalls and is not rationally related to any purpose or any long-term sustainability of what you all are trying to do. Could you talk a little bit about that?
So we really, really want to encourage this private capital back in the marketplace. And
What other things are you doing to encourage that? Bringing the private capital back into the marketplace?
over this last several years, we have strengthened our underwriting risk, which changes the loan-to-value ratios of many of our programs.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schiff, I'm intrigued by some of the things that you've said. Despite all the sound and fury, there's not a lot of details and proposals in terms of how you get to what you're talking about. Obviously, what FHA does promote liquidity, and as a consequence of that, I think that if you're talking about dismantling that, that's going to be very complicated and could have unbelievable consequences in the process. What specifically, what would you propose would be a process for doing it in a way that would not wreck the economy and needlessly harm individuals?
It would liberate the economy. Remember, it is not providing.
But I'm talking about specific steps, not more sound and fury.
Well, because where's the liquidity come from? See, it's being redirected. There are plenty of businessmen that can't borrow for capital investments because somebody else got a government-guaranteed loan. The ladies spoke about the fact that these loan guarantees don't cost anything. They cost a tremendous amount of money. I mean, the obvious cost being that, well, what if the loan ends up in default? The taxpayer's on the hook. So the government is adding contingency liabilities to its balance sheet. And again, we're already, hopelessly in debt. We don't want to take on more liabilities. But I think the greater cost to the economy is the other sectors that are deprived of that money that went towards housing because the government guaranteed that loan and didn't guarantee something else.
But you would agree, I would assume that you'd agree that there is a need for a secondary mortgage market in multifamily housing.
If there is a need for it, the free market will provide it.
How do you get there?
That's how markets function.
All right, well, I'm just asking how you get there.
Well, the government has to get out of the way. Right, because as long as the government's there distorting it, look, 90% of the mortgages now are now guaranteed by the government. There's nobody's going to step in who can compete with the Treasury because the Treasury's, got the taxpayer behind them. So there is no private market when the government comes in. It chases everybody else out. But you've got people here looking for the government to come in to provide a guarantee so that loans could be made that the free market would deny. If the free market wants to deny a loan, there's a reason for that. And somebody who is more deserving, we don't need more houses. We need more factories. We've got this huge trade deficit because too much of our resources are going to the things that the government wants to promote and not enough things that we actually need and that the free market would provide if the government simply got out of the way. Because the government doesn't have money. There's no money for housing. The government has to take money someplace else and direct it.
Well, I would suggest, Mr. Schiff, I think what you say is interesting. There may be some truth to it, but I would suggest that if you have a proposal, people like to hear it. Now you've talked for 2.5 minutes and we haven't heard anything. So.
The proposals, the proposal is free market capitalism. Why is the government involved? What difference does it make to the federal government whether somebody rents a house or buys a house? Let the market handle it.
Mr. Schiff?
Yes.
The time has expired. The gentleman
Unfortunately,
from Texas,
you're right.
Mr. Reed.
Please permit me to just ask you to raise your hands if you agree. If you agree that there is a need for FHA, would you kindly extend a hand into the air? Excuse me, Mr. Schiff, if you don't mind, I'll conduct this more down. And I'll ask that you be kind, and we'll get to you in just a moment. So let the record reflect that all but 2 hands were raised. Those who have perused history are very much aware of what housing was like prior to FHA, the GSEs, large down payments, huge balloons. Only those who had some degree of wealth could afford housing in the main. We did not have the American dream that we have now. And I would hope that we would not retrogress to the point that we now have to defend whether or not there should be an FHA. I think our goal is to improve it and make it a better FHA. I'd like to, if I may, ask my builder to have just a comment. Would you give some indication as to why you are of the opinion that FHA is necessary, please, sir?
Sure.
And thank you for appearing.
Thank you. Yeah, the home builders believe that there should be an entire range of housing available to all citizens of this country at all income levels. The problem with taking the government out of housing is that you create dramatically a have and have not society. And we believe that everyone should have the right to the American dream, which is owning their own home. We believe that along that way we're going to have renters, and we need to have rental housing available to those folks that need to rent. So it's a stepped process, and we think the full range needs to be available.
What do you think the role of the federal government should be in multifamily housing development?
Well, at the risk of disagreeing with the prior speaker, I just don't think that this is a role that the private sector has served traditionally, and they don't serve it well. I mean, we don't have to harken back too far in our nation's history to the tenement housing and things that existed. So, you know, I don't feel that this is a need that the private sector has traditionally filled, and I also disagree that the private sector wasn't the larger part of the problem that was created in the housing market.
Would you also agree, though, if I may, that if in a situation of default, government would be on the hook?
True, and in this particular program, the state HFAs actually participate in the risk. So it is an insurance policy. The premium revenues have exceeded any of the losses in this program, and there's a 20-year.
The default rate, I think, is fairly low.
It is in Illinois. It's 1.7%.
Okay.
There's no capital requirement. Single-family housing is supposed to keep a 2% surplus. The multifamily program does not have a similar surplus that I know of. Maybe you can inform me and help me if I'm misinformed. But because of that, isn't it true that if the program didn't make money, the taxpayers would have to step in and bail them out?
I didn't say anything about the reserves in my.
You did say that it didn't cost taxpayers money. It's directly related to reserves, and if there's no reserves, it could cost taxpayers money.
Ms. Kinney said that.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh, so I was referring to the CBO estimate.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was Ms. Kinney. I apologize.
Yeah, and the FHA risk share program and the historical operation of that program, and it has run at a surplus.
Sure, but if they didn't have a surplus in any given year, wouldn't it cost taxpayers money because there's no capital reserve?
Yeah, potentially it could. I think the benefit of this program that can't be underscored enough is that the states actually share in the risk with the federal government.
Sure, and the problem I have is the government typically misprices risk. That's what so you could see where the private market values the risk and how the government values the risk. I'll go to Mr. Pagliari, Mr. Lopez, and then Mr. Schiff.
Some of that risk-sharing program.
I'll let her go out. You do want to let Mr. Schiff talk?
Yeah, we can't lose sight of the fact that the reserves that you're talking about right now for the FHA for single family are wholly inadequate for the losses that are going to come. Remember, right now we've got mortgage rates.
Did you say they're wholly adequate?
Wholly inadequate. Inadequate. The losses will be at least 20 or 30%, if not more. Because what's ultimately going to happen when interest rates rise and the housing market has another leg down and more people lose their jobs, the defaults are going to go through the roof. And
But Mr. Schiff,
these contingency liabilities will be realized, and
Sure.
they're enormous.
and I'm running out of time, so if you could just, but philosophically, you agree that if the government's going to do this, they should have some type of surplus,
Well, to
or
the extent
someplace-
that you make the mistake of doing it, yes, require as big a reserve as possible.
Yeah.
But I'm sure whatever you require is not going to be enough, because, as I said, the losses are going to be enormous.
I understand your philosophy on that, but I'm trying to get at, if we're going to do it, how we do it the best we can. Ms. Kinney.
Mr. Kleber?
Yes.
Recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Schiff, I just have one question. Do you oppose government-backed flood insurance?
Yes, I do. I think
Thank
it
you.
encourages people to build in flood zones, and therefore we end up using more money. You know, your colleague there, Mr. Green, wanted to know who's in favor of HUD, and just about everybody here raised their hand because they directly benefit from HUD. Sure, a home builder can sell a home at an inflated price because of the FHA, but there's people on the other side of these transactions who are losing money. There are plenty of people who are not at this table who suffer because Congress decides to subsidize the industries that are represented here. You know, I was asked, you know, where's my solution? You know, my solution is the free market.
Well,
It doesn't require government. It requires abolishing government.
In essence, your question, I want you to answer mine. So, with regard to flood insurance, which this committee deals with,
Yes.
should we then use the federal government to force the people out of New Orleans?
Well, the federal government shouldn't be forcing people to do anything. I mean, first of all, there's nothing in the Constitution,
So they
and
shouldn't-
you guys all swear an oath to uphold it, that said that you're supposed to get involved with flood insurance. But, you know, a lot of the flood insurance goes to millionaires who have beach homes.
Oh, no, I'm not,
Let
but I
the
didn't
private
ask-
sector.
But I didn't ask you about the millionaires. I asked you
But you asked me about flood insurance.
I asked you about New Orleans.
Yeah. Well, I think that New Orleans and the people down there can take care of New Orleans. It's not up to the federal government to tax people in Maine or New Hampshire or California to deal with the problems in New Orleans. You know,
So-
there's state governments, there's city governments, and there's a free market. If you guys would
So
let it
the-
function, it would work.
So Louisiana should offer state-backed flood insurance?
No, I think there should be private insurance.
You just said it was the state's responsibility.
Well, I don't believe in the state should be doing that either.
No,
I
but
think-
that's what you said.
Well, I said that there are states, but you know, if let the state make the mistake, not let the federal government, because at least it's just the local taxpayers that will suffer. But the private sector can supply flood insurance. The problem is when the government subsidizes it and it's too cheap, it encourages people to build in flood zones. Absent that in the government backing, the insurance would be more expensive, so fewer people would build in those areas, and so we wouldn't be damaged. I mean, it's called moral hazard. It's unfortunate that politicians very often overlook the unintended consequences of their actions, because what you do alters behavior.
Okay,
and
so-
it will often make the very problem worse that you're trying to solve.
Okay, so those individuals who lived on the Gulf Coast, whose homes were not on the beach, but who lost their properties, including a member of the United States Senate and a member of the House. What did they do wrong? I mean,
Well, remember, people were encouraged to build there by these subsidies.
No,
and it's not that the free market wouldn't offer insurance. They would just offer it at a higher price.
Can you
It
tell
would
me
be
who
there.
encouraged Charlie? What's his name? No, who lost his house? We went by his house. Gene Taylor.
Yeah.
So who encouraged Congressman Gene Taylor to build?
No, I'm saying by offering insurance where the free market might offer it at a higher rate, you get more building, or people might not
I know,
take
but
adequate precautions.
You're answering a question that I didn't ask.
Oh, yes, you did. You asked me about flood insurance. I'm answering your question. But,
Yeah, but-
well, why should I? I live in Connecticut. Why should I have to pay for somebody to flood insurance down in New Orleans? I mean, why is it you're just trying to redistribute everything? Look, you know, I might have a storm up in Connecticut. I'm not going to go asking somebody in Louisiana to
So-
pay for my damage.
So the insurance companies, the private insurance companies, are lining up to provide insurance to people who live on the Gulf Coast.
Well, no, why would they? Because they can't compete with the federal government doing it when the federal government
Mr.
doesn't
Schiff,
operate at a profit.
Mr.
There's no
Schiff,
market for it.
please, you know, we're here to get answers to questions, and you just get throwing out more and more questions. If you have a response and you want to answer the question, don't just
I am
throw it
answering
back.
your question.
And as a matter of fact, that just signed into law that beach houses and secondary homes are no longer receiving a subsidy for flood
Well, that's a step in the right
insurance.
direction.
And we also have a bill that hopefully will come out this year that will move the risk to the private sector, and they will take over this insurance. But please, you know, the decorum here is not this yelling, and you know, I like a rant sometimes, but I think we've had enough of it.
Remember, I represent the taxpayers here, and we're pretty upset at what's been going on, so you can
Well,
hear
there's
that.
a lot of people here that are upset, but
Well,
we're trying to find the answers, not just to hear the rant.
I've got the answers. All you have to do is listen to them. Yeah.
The time has expired. Mr. Hurd, do you have a question? I do not. Okay. Mr. Sherman has joined us. Mr. Sherman, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Yes. Mr. Schiff, we tried your philosophy until about 100 years ago. Then there was a huge disaster at the Mississippi, and the American people thought it was simply outrageous that the federal government didn't help everybody. For you to think that we should allow people to go uninsured, not subsidize the insurance, and then the United States Congress is not going to help people who are uninsured and hit by a disaster. Maybe that happens in an Ayn Rand novel, but it doesn't happen in the United States Congress.
You know, we did try my view for a long time in this country. We became the wealthiest country the world had ever known because we had free market.
We tried your view until about the 19-teens. The country has done, you can say, rather poorly over the last few years. But we did pretty well in the latter 80% of the 20th century.
Don't take credit.
Now, excuse me, Mr. Schiff. I'll go on to the fact is that if you go uninsured, you have still insurance, but it's paid for by the taxpayer because, as a practical matter, and I've been, sir, I know you imagine a world that's different. I've served here for over 15 years, and if there is an enormous front page natural disaster, and a homeowner is uninsured, there will be a special appropriations bill. And the size of that bill will be less if people are insured. The federal government in this real world has a financial interest in minimizing the uninsured damage of front page natural disasters. And with that, I
realize, though, there's hundreds of billions of dollars in losses that are waiting for the FHA. The bailout is going to be enormous. You understand this already, based on the loans they've already guaranteed.
I'll simply say that natural disasters cannot be prohibited by law. The natural human response to natural disasters cannot be prohibited by philosophy. And anything that reduces the uninsured losses of ordinary homeowners will reduce the cost of the next special appropriations bill far more effectively than a philosophical attack on doing a special appropriations bill after a natural disaster. I'll yield back.
And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for being on this panel. It's been a very interesting panel. It's been a very helpful panel, and I think it's given us a lot of thought, and we really appreciate that you all taking the time to be here. And thank you very much. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.
Boys forget what their country means by just reading The Land of the Free in history books. When they get to be men, they forget even more. Liberty's too precious a thing to be buried in books. Liberty's too precious a thing to be buried in books, Miss Saunders.